Dad, what does sloppy seconds mean? My 8-year-old son Ben asked this over his Lucky Charms, milk dripping down his chin, while my wife Elena sat frozen with her coffee cup halfway to her lips. The kitchen went dead silent, except for the hum of our stainless steel refrigerator, the one Elena insisted we needed because appearances matter in this neighborhood. I'm Nick Callahan, and I build houses for a living. I know when foundations are cracking, when structures are about to collapse. Right then, staring at my wife's pale face, I realized my marriage had been falling apart for months, and I'd been too stupid to notice. "Where did you hear that, buddy?" I asked, keeping my voice steady while my gut twisted into knots. "Mommy was on the phone last night. She said you were her sloppy seconds and laughed really loud." Elena's coffee cup hit the granite countertop with a sharp crack. "Ben, honey, you misunderstood. Daddy, we should get him ready for school." But I was already studying her face, the way her left eye twitched when she lied, how her perfectly manicured fingers drummed against the counter. After 12 years of marriage, I knew every tell she had. She wasn't embarrassed. She was calculating. "Yeah, Ben, go brush your teeth," I said, not taking my eyes off Elena. The moment his footsteps disappeared upstairs, Elena stood and smoothed her designer workout clothes. "Nick, you're being ridiculous. He's 8. He doesn't understand adult conversations." "What adult conversation involves calling your husband sloppy seconds?" She grabbed her purse and keys. "I'm late for my client meeting. We'll talk tonight." "What client meeting? Your calendar's empty." Elena paused at the kitchen doorway. For just a second, her mask slipped, and I saw something cold and calculating underneath. "My PR business is growing, Nick. Maybe if you paid attention to something besides drywall and 2x4s, you'd know that." The front door slammed, leaving me alone with the echo of her words and a growing suspicion that my wife wasn't the woman I married. I'd built our house with my own hands 5 years ago. Every beam, every nail, every wire run through the walls. I knew every inch of this place. What I didn't know was who Elena really was anymore. That afternoon, after dropping Ben at school, I did something I'd never done in 12 years of marriage. I followed my wife. Elena's white BMW led me through the winding streets of the Hollywood Hills to a massive Mediterranean mansion tucked behind iron gates. I parked down the street and watched through binoculars as she walked up to the front door like she owned the place. A young woman answered, blonde, maybe 25, wearing a silk robe in the middle of the day. They hugged, they laughed, they looked like sisters. I knew Elena's sister Maya lived somewhere in the hills, but Elena always said Maya was finding herself and going through a difficult time. From where I sat, Maya looked like she was doing just fine. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. "Client meeting running late. Don't wait up." It was 2 in the afternoon. I spent the next 3 hours watching that house. Elena never left, but other people came and went. Expensive cars, well-dressed men who looked like they stepped out of Hollywood casting calls, women who looked like they stepped out of magazines. At 6 o'clock, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Elena emerged from the house wearing a completely different outfit, a black dress that cost more than most people's rent, jewelry I'd never seen before. She wasn't alone. A man in his 50s, silver-haired and wearing a suit that probably cost more than my truck, had his arm around her waist. They kissed. Not a friendly peck. A deep, intimate kiss that lasted long enough for me to take pictures with my phone. I followed them to an upscale restaurant in Beverly Hills where they sat in a corner booth, holding hands across the table like lovers. The man kept touching her face, her hair. Elena laughed at everything he said, the same laugh she used to save for me. My hands shook as I watched my wife of 12 years act like a completely different person. When they left the restaurant, they didn't go back to the mansion. They went to the Four Seasons Hotel. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 2 hours, staring at the building where my wife was doing God knows what with another man. My phone stayed silent. No texts, no calls, no explanations. At midnight, I drove home to our empty house and Ben's babysitter, who looked at me with pity in her eyes. "Mrs. Callahan called," she said. "She's staying at her sister's tonight. Emergency." I paid the babysitter and sat alone in the kitchen I'd built, in the house I'd constructed with my own hands, wondering how long my wife had been lying to me. The next morning, Elena came home at dawn, wearing the same black dress and carrying her heels. She crept through the front door like a teenager sneaking in past curfew. I was waiting in the kitchen with coffee and questions. "How's Maya doing?" I asked casually. Elena froze in the doorway. What? You said you stayed at Maya's last night. Emergency, right? How is she? She's fine, just needed someone to talk to. That's funny, because Maya called here at 10 last night looking for you. Said she hadn't heard from you in weeks. Elena's face went through several emotions: surprise, anger, calculation. She settled on indignation. Are you checking up on me now? Should I be? I don't have time for this paranoid BS, Nick. Some of us have real careers that require networking and late meetings. She stormed upstairs, and I heard the shower running. When she came back down 30 minutes later, she was back to being the Elena I knew. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile. I'm sorry, she said, kissing my cheek. I'm stressed about work. Maya's going through a breakup, and I didn't want to worry you with the details. It was a good lie, believable. If I hadn't seen her with my own eyes, I might have bought it. But I had seen her, and now I needed to know everything. Elena's laptop sat open on our kitchen counter that evening, forgotten in her rush to get Ben ready for his soccer practice. She'd been careless, probably because she thought I was too stupid to be suspicious. I wasn't proud of what I did next, but 12 years of marriage had just been revealed as a lie. Pride was a luxury I couldn't afford. Her email was still logged in. The first thing I found was a calendar that didn't match anything she'd told me about her schedule. Client meetings at luxury hotels, business dinners that lasted until 2 in the morning, networking events at private mansions. Then I found the text messages. The contact was listed as M, but I recognized Maya's number. The conversation made my stomach turn. Maya. Tonight's client is the producer, the one who likes the married ones. Elena. Perfect. What's he paying? Maya. $5,000 for the evening. He specifically requested you. Elena. Tell him I'll wear the wedding ring. Some of them get off on that. Maya. You're sick. I love it. Elena. Nick's so clueless. He actually thinks I'm building a PR business. Maya. What are you going to do when he figures it out? Elena. He won't. He's too busy playing with his tools to notice what his wife does with hers. I read that conversation 3 times before it fully sank in. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was a courtesan, a high-end escort servicing wealthy men while I stayed home with our son. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was how stupid they thought I was. I kept digging. Found a hidden folder on her desktop labeled Insurance, videos and photos of her clients in compromising positions. Blackmail material. Elena wasn't just selling her body. She was running a sophisticated operation. Another folder contained financial records. Elena had been making more money in a month than I made in a year. Money that never showed up in our joint accounts. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through client lists, payment schedules, and detailed notes about preferences and kinks. Hollywood executives, tech billionaires, politicians. Elena and Maya were servicing the elite of Los Angeles. The front door slammed. Elena was back from soccer practice. I closed the laptop and tried to look casual, but my wife had always been good at reading people. It's probably what made her good at her real job. What's wrong? She asked, studying my face. Nothing, just tired. You look like you've seen a ghost. More like I'd seen my marriage's death certificate, but I wasn't ready to play that card yet. Ben's upstairs doing homework, I said. How was practice? Fine. She was still watching me carefully. Nick, are you sure you're okay? Perfect, I lied, just like she'd been lying to me for months. That night, after Elena fell asleep, I transferred everything from her laptop to a flash drive. Photos, videos, text messages, financial records, client lists, all of it. If my wife wanted to play games, I was going to learn the rules. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to a coffee shop across town where I could think without Elena's presence poisoning the air. I spread printouts across a corner table and tried to make sense of the scope of what I'd discovered. Elena and Maya weren't just running a simple escort service. They had a network of women servicing the most powerful men in Los Angeles. The money flowing through their operation was staggering. But what made me physically sick was reading Elena's notes about our marriage. Nick's getting suspicious. Might need to accelerate timeline. Discussed exit strategy with Monsieur divorce proceedings should be straightforward. N doesn't know about offshore accounts. Client suggested permanent solution to N problem, considering options. My wife wasn't just planning to leave me. She was planning to destroy me. And the reference to a permanent solution made my blood run cold. I needed help. Professional help. Victor Reeves had been a detective with LAPD for 25 years before retiring to run a small private investigation business. We'd met on a construction job 2 years ago when I'd built an addition onto his house. He was a straight shooter who'd seen every kind of human ugliness the city had to offer. His office was in a strip mall in Van Nuys, squeezed between a tax preparation service and a nail salon. The waiting room smelled like coffee and disappointment. "Nick Callahan," Vic said, looking up from his desk. "What brings you to my corner of paradise?" I handed him the flash drive. "My wife is a courtesan, and I think she's planning to eliminate me." Vic raised an eyebrow. "Well, that's not something I hear every day." "Have a seat and tell me everything." I spent 2 hours laying out Elena's operation, her lies, and the evidence I'd gathered. Vic listened without interruption, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "This is serious stuff," he said finally. "Your wife and her sister are running a high-end escort service for some very powerful people. People who don't like exposure." "What do I do?" "First, you don't confront Elena directly. If she's involved with the kind of clients I'm seeing on this list, your safety is a real concern. Second, we need more evidence. What you have is good, but we need to establish patterns, document meetings, identify the key players." "You mean surveillance?" "I mean, we're going to follow your wife and her sister until we know everything about their operation. Then we're going to decide how to use that information." Vic's plan was methodical and professional. Over the next 2 weeks, we documented Elena's movements, photographed her meetings, and identified her regular clients. We tracked Maya's involvement and mapped out their network of women and clients. The picture that emerged was bigger and uglier than I'd imagined. Elena and Maya were running what amounted to a high-end brothel disguised as a PR and event planning business. They had a stable of women servicing politicians, entertainment executives, tech entrepreneurs, and other wealthy clients. The operation generated millions of dollars in revenue, most of it hidden in offshore accounts. But the worst discovery came when Vic identified Elena's most frequent client. Calvin Royce was a Hollywood producer with connections to organized crime. He'd been investigated multiple times for money laundering, extortion, and worse. Elena had been seeing him twice a week for 6 months. "This guy is bad news," Vic told me, sliding a thick file across his desk. "He's connected to people who make problems disappear permanently. If your wife is involved with him, you're in real danger." "What kind of danger?" "The kind where you have an accident and nobody asks too many questions." I stared at the surveillance photos of Elena and Royce together. In one, they were kissing outside the Four Seasons. In another, they were holding hands at an expensive restaurant. In a third, Royce had his hand on Elena's throat in what looked like an intimate gesture. "There's something else," Vic said. "We intercepted some communications between Elena and Maya. They're planning something for next week, something involving you." He handed me a transcript of a phone conversation his equipment had recorded. "Elena, Calvin thinks Nick is becoming a problem." "Maya, what kind of problem?" "Elena, the kind that needs to be solved permanently." "Maya, are you serious?" "Elena, he's been asking questions, going through my things. It's only a matter of time before he figures everything out." "Maya, so what do we do?" "Elena, Calvin has people who handle these situations, make it look like an accident." "Maya, Jesus, Elena, we're talking about homicide." "Elena, we're talking about protecting everything we've built. Nick's just collateral damage." I read the transcript 3 times before the words sank in. My wife of 12 years, the mother of my child, was planning to have me eliminated. "What do I do?" I asked Vic. "You disappear for a while. Let me handle this." "I'm not running away." "Then you're going to end up dead." I looked at the photos of Elena with her clients, the financial records showing millions in hidden assets, the transcripts of conversations planning my homicide. My wife had turned our marriage into a business transaction and our family into a cover story. But I wasn't going to run. I was going to fight back. "I need to know everything," I told Vic. "Every client, every meeting, every dirty secret. If Elena wants to play hardball, I'm going to show her what a real game looks like." Vic leaned back in his chair and studied me. "You sure about this? These people don't play by normal rules." "Neither do I," I said. "Not anymore." 3 days later, I was sitting in a dive bar in Burbank with 3 other men who'd discovered their wives were part of Elena and Maya's operation. Vic had identified them through his investigation, and I'd reached out to each one personally. Miguel Santos owned a chain of successful restaurants and had been married to Carmen for 15 years. He'd found out about her involvement when a client recognized her at one of his establishments. Dr. James Lee was a surgeon, whose wife Linda had been recruited by Maya 6 months ago. He'd discovered the truth when he found unexplained cash deposits in her personal account. Tom Bradley was a retired police sergeant whose wife Jennifer had been blackmailing her clients with Maya's help. He'd figured it out when one of her sufferers contacted him directly. We were an unlikely group, a contractor, a restaurateur, a surgeon, and an ex-cop. But we had one thing in common. Our wives had betrayed us in the most humiliating way possible, and we wanted revenge. The way I see it, Tom said, nursing his beer, we have two choices. We can go to the police with what we know, or we can handle this ourselves. The police won't do anything, Miguel said bitterly. These women are servicing judges, prosecutors, city council members. Half the people who would investigate this are probably clients. Besides, I added, going to the police doesn't give us what we really want. Which is, Dr. Lee asked, revenge, complete, total, humiliating revenge. Tom smiled grimly. I like the way you think, Nick. Over the next 2 hours, we shared our stories and our evidence. The pattern was always the same. Our wives had been recruited by Maya, trained by Elena, and gradually drawn into servicing higher-end clients. The money was too good, the lifestyle too seductive. But they'd all made the same mistake. They'd underestimated their husbands. So what's the plan? Miguel asked. I pulled out a folder containing everything Vic and I had compiled. We exposed them. All of them. Clients, operation, everything. But we do it in a way that destroys their lives completely. How? Elena's planning some kind of high-end party next weekend. All the major clients will be there, along with their wives, who don't know what their husbands are really paying for. We're going to crash that party and burn their world down. Tom leaned forward. I'm listening. Elena thinks I'm stupid. They all think we're stupid. That's going to be their downfall. I laid out my plan. It was ambitious, risky, and completely illegal. It was also exactly what our wives deserved. The party was being held at Calvin Royce's mansion in Beverly Hills. According to the intelligence Vic had gathered, it was an annual event where clients could meet new women and negotiate ongoing arrangements. Wives and girlfriends were invited to maintain the illusion of legitimacy. Our plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. We were going to infiltrate the party, gather evidence of illegal activities, and then expose everything to the assembled crowd in the most humiliating way possible. Miguel would provide catering services. His company had worked Royce's events before, so his presence wouldn't be suspicious. Tom would handle security, using his police contacts to ensure law enforcement arrived at exactly the right moment. Dr. Lee would manage the technical aspects, including hidden cameras and audio recording equipment. My job was the most dangerous. I was going to confront Elena directly in front of everyone she cared about impressing. This is going to destroy more than just our wives, Dr. Lee warned. Some of these clients are powerful people. They'll fight back. Good, I said. I'm looking forward to it. We spent the rest of the week preparing. Miguel arranged for his catering company to service the party. Tom reached out to Detective Maria Ramos, a straight-arrow cop who'd been investigating connections between organized crime and Hollywood for years. Dr. Lee acquired surveillance equipment that would document everything happening at the party. Meanwhile, Elena continued her normal routine, meeting clients and planning what she thought would be another successful evening of high-end prostitution. She had no idea that her husband and 3 other men were preparing to destroy everything she'd built. The night before the party, Elena came home late and found me waiting in the kitchen. You're up late, she said, pouring herself a glass of wine. Couldn't sleep. She studied my face. You've been acting strange lately. Is everything okay? Perfect, I lied. Just thinking about our future. What about our future? Whether we have one. Elena set down her wine glass. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just wondering if we're both happy with how things are going. I'm happy, she said carefully. Are you? I looked at my wife, her perfect hair, her expensive clothes, her practiced smile, and felt nothing but contempt. I'm exactly where I want to be, I said. Elena kissed me goodnight, and I let her. Tomorrow, she'd learn what those words really meant. The next evening, I put on my best suit and drove to Calvin Royce's mansion. The party was already in full swing when I arrived. Expensive cars lined the circular driveway, and the sound of music and laughter drifted from the backyard. Miguel's catering staff was busy serving appetizers and drinks to a crowd of Hollywood elite and their companions. I spotted Elena immediately, wearing a stunning red dress and talking animatedly with a group of men I recognized from Vic's client files. She looked beautiful, confident, completely in her element. She also looked like a stranger. Tom was positioned near the main entrance, dressed as private security and monitoring everyone who entered or left. Dr. Lee was in the kitchen with Miguel's crew, ensuring our recording equipment was capturing everything. I grabbed a drink from a passing waiter and began circulating through the crowd, listening to conversations and identifying the key players in Elena's operation. The level of casual corruption was staggering. Judges discussing case fixes, politicians negotiating vote trades, executives planning market manipulation. And through it all, Elena and Maya moved like queens, introducing clients to women, arranging private meetings, collecting payments with practiced discretion. At 10 o'clock, Calvin Royce called for everyone's attention. The crowd gathered in the main living room as he began what was clearly a rehearsed speech about friendship, discretion, and mutual benefit. That's when I made my move. "Excuse me," I said loudly, stepping forward from the back of the crowd. "I'd like to say something." Royce looked annoyed. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Nick Callahan, Elena's husband." The room went dead silent. Elena's face went white as she spotted me for the first time that evening. "I just wanted to thank everyone for supporting my wife's business," I continued, pulling out my phone and connecting it to the room's sound system via Bluetooth. "I thought you might like to hear what she really thinks of all of you." I hit play on the first audio file, Elena and Maya discussing their clients in crude, contemptuous terms, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate wealthy men with sex and flattery. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Several wives looked confused, then angry as they began to understand what they were hearing. "Nick, stop this," Elena hissed, pushing through the crowd toward me. "Oh, I'm just getting started," I said, switching to the next file. Elena discussing her plans to have me eliminated. The murmurs turned to gasps. Several people started moving toward the exits, but Tom and his police backup had already surrounded the building. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "you're all under arrest." That's when the real chaos began. Calvin Royce lunged toward me, but Tom intercepted him with the kind of tackle that would have made his old police academy proud. They went down hard, crashing into a glass coffee table that exploded into 1,000 pieces. Elena was screaming at me across the room, her perfect composure finally cracking. "You son of a bitch! You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done," I shouted back. "I've exposed you for what you really are." The mansion had erupted into complete pandemonium. Wealthy clients were pushing toward exits that were blocked by Detective Ramos and her team. Wives were confronting husbands, demanding explanations for what they just heard. Maya was trying to destroy evidence on her phone while Dr. Lee attempted to stop her. Miguel appeared at my side, grinning despite the chaos. "This is better than I imagined. It's not over yet," I said, watching Elena fight her way through the crowd toward me. When she finally reached me, her face was twisted with rage. "You've destroyed everything. Years of work." "Good," I said calmly. "That was the point." She slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed through the room, causing a momentary lull in the chaos. "You're nothing," she screamed. "You're a nobody contractor who builds houses for people better than you. I gave you class, status, a life worth living." "You gave me lies," I said, touching my cheek where her hand had left a red mark. 12 years of lies. "I gave you more than you deserved. You gave me sloppy seconds," I said, using her own words against her. "Remember? That's what you called me." Elena's face went white. She'd forgotten about Ben overhearing that conversation, forgotten that her casual cruelty had started this whole investigation. Detective Ramos appeared beside us. "Elena Callahan, you're under arrest for operating an illegal prostitution ring, money laundering, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit homicide." "This is harassment," Elena protested as Ramos cuffed her. "My lawyers will destroy all of you. Your lawyers are going to be busy," Ramos said. "We have enough evidence to put you away for 20 years. As Elena was led away, she turned back to me one last time. "You think you've won? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Calvin has connections you can't imagine. This isn't over." "Yes, it is," I said. "It's completely over." Maya was arrested trying to climb over the back fence. Tom caught her and dragged her back to the mansion, where she broke down completely and started confessing to everything in hopes of a reduced sentence. Calvin Royce was charged with racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit homicide. His connections couldn't save him from the mountain of evidence we'd compiled. The other clients were arrested on various charges ranging from solicitation to bribery to tax evasion. Several marriages ended that night as wives learned the truth about their husbands' activities. Miguel, Tom, Dr. Lee, and I stood on the mansion's front steps as the last police car drove away. Our wives were gone, their operation destroyed, their clients exposed. So what now? Dr. Lee asked. Now we go home to our kids and start over, I said. Any regrets? Miguel asked. I thought about Elena, about the 12 years we'd spent together, about the son we'd raised and the life we'd built. Then I thought about her calling me sloppy seconds and planning to have me homicided. None, I said. Not a single one. 3 months later, I was sitting in a courtroom watching my wife plead guilty to multiple felonies. Elena looked different in her orange jumpsuit, smaller, older, defeated. The woman who had once commanded rooms full of powerful men now couldn't meet anyone's eyes. Her lawyer had negotiated a plea deal, 15 years in federal prison in exchange for full cooperation with ongoing investigations into political and judicial corruption. Elena would serve every day of that sentence. Maya got 12 years. Calvin Royce got 25 to life when additional charges related to organized crime were filed. Ben was living with me full-time now. He'd ask questions about where his mother went, and I'd given him age-appropriate answers about her making bad choices and needing to face consequences. He seemed to understand, or at least accept, that our family was permanently changed. The house felt different without Elena's presence. Quieter, but also more honest. I'd removed all traces of her from our home. Photos, clothes, the expensive decorations she'd bought with money earned selling herself to strangers. Victor Reeves stopped by one evening while Ben was doing homework upstairs. How are you holding up? He asked, accepting a beer and settling into my kitchen chair. Better than I expected, I said truthfully. It's like I can finally breathe again. Any word from Elena? She writes letters. I throw them away without reading them. Vic nodded approvingly. Smart. She's probably trying to manipulate you into helping with her appeal. There won't be any appeal. She pled guilty to everything. Doesn't mean she won't try to get back into your head. I looked around the kitchen I'd built, in the house I'd constructed with my own hands. She can try, but I'm done being anyone's sloppy seconds. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting visitors, and Ben was upstairs, so I answered it myself. A woman in her 30s stood on my front porch, holding a manila envelope and looking nervous. Mr. Callahan? My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a reporter with the Los Angeles Times. I'm working on a story about the Royce prostitution ring, and I was hoping to speak with you. I don't talk to reporters, I said, starting to close the door. Wait, she said quickly. I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. It's about Elena and something she did that never came out in court. Against my better judgment, I let her in. Vic stayed in the kitchen while I led Walsh to the living room. What is it? I asked. She opened the manila envelope and pulled out a thick stack of documents. Elena kept detailed records of her clients' activities. Not just the prostitution, but everything else. Bribes, kickbacks, illegal deals. She was planning to use this information for blackmail. That's not news. The prosecutors already have all her files. Not these files, Walsh said. These were hidden in the safety deposit box that Elena's sister Maya told us about in exchange for a reduced sentence. They detail a conspiracy involving judges, prosecutors, and police officials to cover up the prostitution ring. I flipped through the documents, names I recognized from news reports, judges who had handled high-profile cases, prosecutors who had made careers fighting corruption. All of them compromised by their involvement with Elena's operation. Why are you showing me this? I asked. Because Elena claims you knew about all of it. She says you were a willing participant who helped her launder money through your construction business. I felt my blood pressure spike. That's a lie. I believe you, Walsh said quickly. But Elena's making these accusations as part of a new plea deal. She's claiming you were her partner, not her sufferer. Vic appeared in the doorway. What's going on? I handed him the documents. Elena's trying to drag me down with her. Vic scanned the papers, his expression growing darker with each page. This is bad, Nick. If prosecutors believe her story, you could be charged as a co-conspirator. But it's not true. Truth and provable innocence are two different things, Walsh said. Elena has documentation that shows large cash deposits into your business accounts. She claims you helped her set up shell companies to hide assets. I remembered the deposits. Elena had told me they were payments from her PR clients who preferred to pay in cash. I'd been suspicious but hadn't pushed for details. Now those same deposits were being used as evidence against me. What does she want? I asked. A conjugal visit and your public support for her appeal, Walsh said. In exchange, she'll recant her accusations against you. Absolutely not. Then you need to prepare for a legal fight that could destroy your life and your son's future. After Walsh left, Vic and I sat in my kitchen discussing options. None of them were good. Elena's playing her last card, Vic said. She knows she's going to prison for a long time, so she's trying to take you with her. Can she do that? Can she lie her way into getting me charged? If she has convincing documentation, yes. Prosecutors want to wrap up all the loose ends from this case. If they think you were involved, they'll charge you and let a jury decide. I thought about Ben upstairs, doing homework and trusting that his father would protect him from the chaos his mother had created. I thought about the life I was trying to rebuild, the reputation I was trying to restore. There has to be another way. I said, There is, Vic said quietly. But you're not going to like it. Tell me. You visit Elena in prison. You find out exactly what evidence she has and what she really wants. Then you decide if you're willing to pay her price or fight her accusations in court. The idea of seeing Elena again made me physically sick, but the alternative, a public trial that would destroy what was left of my reputation and traumatize my son, was worse. Set up the meeting. I said. 2 weeks later, I was sitting across from my wife in the visiting room of a federal prison facility outside Los Angeles. Elena looked older, thinner, but her eyes still held the calculating intelligence that had made her so successful at manipulation. You look good, Nick, she said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. I pulled away. What do you want, Elena? I want my husband back. I want my family back. That's never going to happen. Her expression hardened. Then I guess we're going to court. You're lying about my involvement in your business. You know it, I know it, and eventually a jury will know it. Will they? Elena smiled coldly. I have bank records showing cash deposits. I have shell company documents with your signature. I have recordings of conversations where you discussed client payments. Those recordings don't exist, don't they? She leaned forward. You really think you were the only one recording conversations, Nick? I've been documenting everything for years. Insurance, remember? My stomach dropped. If Elena had recordings that could be taken out of context, she might be able to convince prosecutors that I was involved in her operation. What do you really want? I asked. I want you to stand by me. I want you to bring Ben to visit me. I want you to help me appeal my conviction. In exchange for what? In exchange for not destroying your life. I looked at the woman I'd been married to for 12 years, the mother of my child, and saw nothing but cold calculation. Elena would sacrifice anyone to get what she wanted, including her own family. I need time to think about it, I said. You have 24 hours, Elena said. After that, I'm calling the prosecutors. I left the prison feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Elena still had the power to hurt me, even from behind bars. But as I drove home to Ben, I realized something important. I wasn't the same man who had discovered his wife's betrayal 6 months ago. I wasn't going to be manipulated, threatened, or controlled by anyone ever again. Elena wanted to play hardball? I was going to show her what real hardball looked like. I called an emergency meeting with Miguel, Tom, and Dr. Lee that night. We gathered at the same dive bar where we'd first planned Elena's downfall, but this time the mood was grimmer. She's bluffing, Tom said after I'd explained Elena's threats. She doesn't have recordings that implicate you. How can you be sure? I asked. Because if she did, she would have used them already. Elena's desperate. She's facing 15 years in prison, and she's trying to use you as leverage to get a better deal. Doctor. Lee disagreed. Elena's smart. She might have kept evidence in reserve for exactly this situation. It doesn't matter, Miguel said. We can't let her extort Nick. If we give in to her demands now, she'll own him forever. So what do we do? I asked. So smiled grimly. We call her bluff, but first we make sure we have all the cards. Over the next 12 hours, Tom used his police connections to investigate Elena's claims. He discovered that while she did have bank records showing cash deposits into my business accounts, she had no recordings or documents that actually implicated me in her prostitution ring. Dr. Lee analyzed the shell company documents Elena claimed bore my signature. His expert opinion was that they were forgeries, sophisticated ones, but forgeries nonetheless. Miguel contributed something even more valuable. His restaurant's security cameras had captured several meetings between Elena and Maya, where they discussed framing me if their operation was ever exposed. Elena's been planning this for months, Miguel explained, showing me the footage on his laptop. She knew that if she got caught, she'd try to drag you down with her. So we have proof she's lying? We have proof she's been planning to lie, Tom corrected. That's even better. I called Jennifer Walsh, the reporter, and arranged to meet her the next morning. If Elena wanted to play games with the media, I was going to beat her at her own game. Walsh met me at a coffee shop in downtown Los Angeles, bringing a photographer and a digital recorder. I have a story for you, I told her, but I want your word that you'll investigate everything I tell you before you publish it. What kind of story? I handed her copies of Miguel's security footage, Doctor, Lee's analysis of the forged documents, and Tom's investigation into Elena's false claims. Elena Callahan is trying to frame her ex-husband to leverage a better plea deal, I said. She's been planning this frame-up for months, and I can prove it. Walsh studied the evidences for 20 minutes before looking up at me. This is explosive stuff. If Elena's been lying to prosecutors, it could invalidate her entire plea agreement. That's the point. I want the world to know what kind of person she really is. What about her threat to implicate you in court? Let her try. I have nothing to hide. The story ran on the front page of the Los Angeles Times 3 days later. Convicted madam, attempts to frame ex-husband was the headline, accompanied by a photo of Elena in handcuffs and a detailed breakdown of her attempted extortion. The article destroyed Elena's credibility completely. Prosecutors withdrew their consideration of her new claims, and her lawyer advised her to stop making public statements. But Elena wasn't finished. She had one more card to play, and it was the cruelest one of all. She called Ben. I was at work when my son's school contacted me. Ben had received a phone call during lunch that left him crying and confused. The caller had identified herself as his mother and told him that his father was going to prison and that Ben would have to live in foster care. I raced to the school and found Ben in the principal's office, red-eyed and terrified. "Dad, is it true?" he asked when he saw me. "Are you going to jail?" "No, buddy, I'm not going anywhere." "But Mom said—" "Your mother is sick," I said, kneeling down to his level. "She's saying things that aren't true because she's angry and scared. But I promise you, I'm not going to jail and you're not going to foster care. We're going to be fine." Ben hugged me tightly, and I felt a rage unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Elena had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She'd used our 8-year-old son as a weapon in her war against me. That night, after Ben was asleep, I made a decision that would end Elena's ability to hurt my family forever. I called Detective Ramos and requested a meeting. Elena violated the terms of her plea agreement, I told her, providing recordings of the phone call to Ben that the school had captured on their security system. She's also attempting to suborn perjury by asking me to support false testimony. Ramos listened to the recording twice. "This is witness intimidation involving a minor. Elena just violated federal law." "What does that mean?" "It means her plea deal is void. She'll be recharged with additional counts, and this time there won't be any negotiation." Elena's new charges included witness intimidation, child endangerment, and attempted perjury. Her sentence was increased to 25 years without the possibility of parole. More importantly, the court issued a permanent restraining order, preventing Elena from contacting Ben or me in any way. Any attempt to communicate with us would result in additional criminal charges. Elena's war against her family was finally over. She had lost completely and permanently. 6 months later, Ben and I were having breakfast in the kitchen I'd built when he asked me a question that showed how much he'd grown up. "Dad, do you think Mom will ever say she's sorry?" I considered lying, giving him false hope that his mother might someday acknowledge the damage she'd done. But Ben deserved the truth. "No, buddy, I don't think she will. Some people can't admit when they're wrong, even when they hurt the people they're supposed to love." "That's sad," Ben said. "Oh, it is sad, but it's not our problem anymore." Ben nodded solemnly and went back to his cereal. He was going to be okay. We both were. That afternoon, I received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. Elena in her prison uniform, looking directly at the camera with an expression of pure hatred. On the back, someone had written, "This isn't over." I looked at the photo for a long moment, then walked to the kitchen and dropped it in the garbage disposal. I turned on the water and flipped the switch, watching the image disappear into shredded pieces. Elena could send all the threatening photos she wanted. She could plot and scheme and rage from her prison cell. It didn't matter anymore. I had won. Completely, permanently, and without compromise. My wife had called me sloppy seconds, had betrayed our marriage, had tried to have me eliminated, and had attempted to destroy what was left of our family. But in the end, Elena was the one left with nothing. No freedom, no family, no future, and no hope of redemption. I had given her exactly what she deserved, a lifetime of consequences for her choices. As I watched the last pieces of her photograph disappear down the drain, I smiled for the first time in months. Justice had been served.